love you too. This is amazing. So has the morning been phenomenal? Like if you left right now, you would have some incredible, and Tracy, oh my goodness. Talk about powerful. Like I'm thinking, I have to follow, first of all, someone who looks like Celine Dion and has a story like that right before lunch. Seriously, Ariana, come on. All right, so Ariana touched on it, how valuable it's been for my husband and I to be able to have experiences that we were bringing to the table as network marketers. We didn't have any previous experience, but we brought some skills that we learned working undercover and as a prosecutor. Now, my husband and I actually met working undercover. We were just like a government prearranged marriage. I'd never met him before. My boss says, you got to go move in with this guy, and so that's a whole other story. So, but I want to see sort of where you guys are at, and I know the clicker thing is right here. And how many of you feel that you meet people, or maybe you're one of those people, and you walk into the room and you just draw people to you. You're like, or that's that person who just has that magnetism about them. You can't put your finger on it, but you're like, man, if they would join me in my business, I would, we'd just crush it together. Have you ever met people like that? And have you ever met people that after you've been with them for a few seconds, you feel like you need to have a shower because they're just so icky in every way? So my job with you is, because we all have a bit of ickiness around us. We all have these things that we do that can be a bit icky at times. And we wonder, people know, like, and trust, or we think they do. We think they trust us. We know that they know and like us, but they're not joining us in our business. They're not linking arms in our profession. So I want to get just a few tips for you guys that you're going to take away and apply immediately. So if I could get all of you to stand up. Now, so we're going to play a little game. If all of you could please stand up. And there's prizes. Okay, yes. See, this was super clever when I did it at home. It's sort of lost the momentum at this point because we are playing Oh Sit. And here's how it's going to work. I'm going to give you two choices. I'm going to show you some body language, and you're going to decide if it's true or false. You're going to answer the questions as we go. And if you're wrong, you sit down. And the last person standing wins the game. Clear? We're good? Okay. First one. People, when are they most likely to lie? So if your answer, so you put up your left hand for A and put up your right hand for B. So who thinks texting is, you're more likely to lie when texting? Okay. Okay, all of you please sit down. You're all wrong. You are more likely to lie on the phone because there's no recording, unless I have a search warrant, which I have done for people before to record your calls. So you are more likely to lie when you're on the phone because you're not being recorded. No one can see you. Now, when do you think the time you're least likely to lie is? Any guesses? Sleeping. If you're with my husband, possibly. Face-to-face, that's a close run-up, but actually it's email. People, and everything I'm going to share with you guys, this isn't just stuff I made up because I've got 20 years experience as an undercover and a federal Crown attorney. These are actual legit studies that have been done. So what I'm going to share with you, there's stuff to back this up. If you're interested in more, I can let you know. But yeah, it's email. Less likely to lie on email. All right, next one. Which person is more open to your ideas? Now, this is important when you're meeting with a prospect or a potential client. I just want to give you a bit of a hint because I don't want everyone sitting down on the second question because we have like 10, so I want to keep a few of you up. There are clusters of behaviors that we're looking for. It's never just one thing. So there's always clusters. So please raise your hand if you think A is more open to your ideas. You are all correct. Please remain standing. Everyone else, sit down. I think you may have thought, how many of you thought that because his arms were crossed, he was closed off? How many felt that way? Exactly. That's a huge misconception. Now, sometimes we cross our arms because we're cold or we're simply comfortable, like this lovely lady in orange, right? Are you closed off to me? Are you not liking me? Yes, so there you go. So, And we can see that the giveaway here, guys, I just want to point out, is the face. So the smirky look on B is a look of contempt. When the face is not symmetrical and one side rises up, unless they have an injury or an illness that would indicate that they're not symmetrical, this is what we're looking for. So when you've got the kind of shifty eyes, smirky little face, they are not into what you're talking about. So it's time to change the conversation. All right, you guys are doing great. All right, which is the most reliable of negative emotions? How many of you believe that A is relaying negative emotions? Okay, all of you that said A, hands, you can have a seat. It's actually B, and the reason it's B is the eye blocking. Now with eye blocking, here's a cool study. With blind children, when they hear something that they don't like, something that's repulsive to them, they cover their eyes. It's a fascinating thing. It's just, and it goes across cultures, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is relevant to North America and, perhaps throughout the Commonwealth in some ways. But there are a lot of areas where some of the things that we do with our body is very different. And with Canadians and Americans, would you agree? My Canadians here, how we do things oftentimes is a lot more subdued. And our British friends even more so. So we have to really be cognizant of culture. But if you're dealing with people within your own culture and frame of reference, that's sort of where we're going. All right, you guys are doing, look at all of these give a round of applause for these people that are still standing. I know, this is amazing. Okay, so this is a bit of participation on your part. I would love for you to just choose someone at your table, those standing and not standing, and just shake their hand as though you were meeting them for the first time. See what that feels like. Okay, perfect. And now try it as they have an A, where one of you has your hand over top. All right, which handshake, when you're looking at A and B, is the most influential? So please raise your hand if you think it's A. Okay, please sit down. That is not the most influential. That is a bit of a turnoff when you now. When we were working in the drug unit, we didn't shake hands. That wasn't a big thing. However, as a lawyer, shaking hands, was commonplace in the lawyer's lounge. We didn't shake hands in the courtroom. That looked a little bit weird. But normally, you're meeting people, you're shaking hands, you're doing conversations. And when people try to do that hand over, and we're taught that that's the dominant thing to do you want to be dominated? Unless you get paid and you have a lot of black cat suits in your closet. Being dominated, is that something you want? Is that a turn on for you? Like, okay, not turn on. Because I don't want any of you to answer that question. If you're meeting someone and they have something, a solution for you, because we're, in our profession, that's what we provide, right? Solutions. We're not looking to, shuck products and business opportunities, and it's all about what we have to offer, which is a solution. Now, if I'm someone, and this lovely gal in the front row, what's your name? Maddie. So if Maddie's presenting a solution to me, and she's, I'm interested because she's telling me about it, I think, yes, I can use that. And then she goes in for like the kill with the handshake and just white knuckles over top of me. That, I don't know why I don't like Maddie anymore at that point, but there's something that just has turned me off, right? And so often we all have little ticks, little things that we do. So if you are one of those gripper handshake people, or the ones who come in and then grab their arm or pull them in, I'm not going to center out politicians, because we can probably all think of at least one who's got a bit of a handshake situation going on. Not winning friends and influencing others. I'm just going to go out there on that limb. All right. Smiling is the quickest way to build rapport. Raise your hand if you think that is true. Please sit down. Smiling is lovely when it's a genuine smile, for sure, but it's not the quickest way to build rapport. The quickest way to build rapport, and this is really, I think if you forget everything else I talk about today, when you're building your business, is that when you mirror someone, and I'm not talking like creepy Simon Says mirroring stuff, like they cross their leg, you're watching everything they do, it's all going on. But you will find, and I would encourage you that when you are at, well, everyone in here is going to know these tricks, right? So it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But when you're out and you're doing things, subtly try to mirror the person that you're connecting with. And you will find that rapport is built a lot faster. It also is the number one thing to diffuse conflict. So just practice that and watch. Last night when I was at the VIP cocktail party, which was phenomenal, I was watching to see what was, and I could see when people had made a genuine connection, one would be standing like this, and the next thing you know, within a minute, the other person is standing like that. They've got their arms open. It was remarkable to watch. All right, confidence. Is it the gal A or B? So A is more confident or B is more confident? If you think A, raise your hand. All right, you are correct. A is the right answer. First of all, she's tilted her head a little bit. She's exposing, we have this very vulnerable area, right? From our genitals right up to the top of our head. So this is a very vulnerable area. And when we open that and when we show that it's open, now I'm not suggesting you expose your genitals. I don't think that that's the way to go. But if you can position yourself so that you express vulnerability non-verbally and with not only showing your throat, but a slight head tilt, that's huge rapport building. It also demonstrates confidence, but it doesn't demonstrate arrogance. Now, chin up is a different sort of look. Definitely confident, not so warm and fuzzy with your clients. So exposing your neck a little bit, smiling, covering up your throat, covering up your face, all of those kinds of things are pacifiers. We're going to get into those in a few moments. But you've won the game, and I still have more. So you just come up here, young man. Here I am talking away. All right. Yes. There you go. Congratulations. All right, so iTunes or Starbucks? You're going with iTunes. Angela, you get the candy. You are a smarty, I know it. Thank you. Good job. Let's give it up for all these guys. Yeah. All right. Well, I just have a couple others, and I want to go through them with you because I think that it's important visuals. So it's easier to detect deception when someone is standing. How many think true? Well, it is true, actually. So I'm glad that a few of you, yes, standing, because the most reliable, honest part of our body language is our feet, if you can believe it. So when you're having a conversation with someone, and the door is over there, and I'm talking with you, I'm talking with my friend Maddie, because she still has my interest. She hasn't turned me off with a creepy handshake yet. And I start shifting my feet toward the door, and my torso starts pointing toward the door a little bit. That means the conversation's over. So when you're giving a presentation and you're excited about your products and your business, if you start to see some shifts, it's a good time to start wrapping her up. Start moving along, because the last thing you want to do is wear out your welcome, right? When you're speaking with people, because then they don't want to call you back. But if you leave them wanting more, they're interested. So that's a good business builder. You're perceived as less competent when you have visible tattoos. Now, I know tattoos are super in. I live in a town of 5,000 people. We have 2 tattoo parlors in town. It's very popular. I make no judgment on tattoos. This also goes for unkept hair, white socks with black shoes, and overly revealing clothing. Same thing. People are viewed as less competent. These are important things to keep in mind. I'm not saying don't have tattoos. I'm just saying know your audience when you're meeting with someone and what that looks like. There's actually been studies for those of you who, of course, in our business, you have a business of your own. But if you're looking for employment or you're helping your kids or relatives look for employment, they have visible tattoos, it's a good idea to cover those up before attending an interview. The same goes with multiple rings, especially for women who wear a lot of rings. Again, studies, less competent. It doesn't make it true, but it's all about perception. All right, anxiety. When we're like this or when we're like this? Which one? So how many think A? You are correct. Covering up the genitals, the fig leaf move, shows insecurity, less confidence. However, hands behind the back, unless they're handcuffed, And again, if that's your thing, I'm not making a judgment, I'm just going from where I used to work, shows confidence. I'm so confident I can do this with my hands tied behind my back. So when you're giving presentations, when you're meeting with people, you're not going to remember all of these, and some of them are so subconscious that it's going to be difficult to control, but if you can just remember a few and start putting those into play, it'll make a huge difference. All right, confidence. Straightening the tie, confident, or hands in the pocket with thumbs sticking out. So how many think it's adjusting clothing shows more confidence? Incorrect, that's ventilating behavior. So when we're nervous, we start to ventilate, we pull on our neck, we adjust our sleeves, we move our pants. We're doing things to try to adjust. However, when you expose your thumbs, and this goes for when you're at a meeting, so standing, exposed thumbs in pockets, very confident, that's a confident move. Having your hands on a table with thumbs up, showing thumbs, confidence. If you're sitting at a table with people and someone takes their hands and puts them under the table, they're starting to shift away from you. So these are important things to watch for when you're meeting. The fastest way to diffuse tension is the old fingers behind the back of the head. How many think that that is true? Raise your hand if you think that is true. Well, you guys are getting a lot smarter. I like this. All right, it's not. It's actually, this is an uber confident move, and it's called the cobra, and it's really taking up a lot of space. And you will see if you're in a meeting with the boss or with someone, a top income earner, sometimes you will see this behavior, and it shows confidence, but it doesn't build rapport. So just be aware of that. Now, I tried to give you guys a clue there with the hands behind the head. I thought it was very subtle on my part. All right, so that was the test. Now, this is me. I don't know if you can tell, my legs look phenomenal in that picture, so that's why I used it. And this is my husband, who's at the back of the room, and he actually looked like that when we met, because we had to work in an undercover project together. Like I said, he'd already been in the drug unit for, I think, about 7 years at that point, and I was newer in the unit. So as I mentioned, they tell us, okay, you're going to move 4.5 hours away from where you live, you're moving in with this guy, and you're going to pretend to be common law spouses, and you're going to buy drugs from all these people in this town, and this is how it's going to work. And I'm thinking, I'm moving in with this guy I've never met. So we live in this apartment. We lived together for 10 months. And when I tell the story, I say, it was romantic, and we're living together, and we're, this common goal of justice. And when Kevin tells the story, it's like we were undercover and then we went under the covers, and he does the whole thing, right? And, don't laugh at that story. You're really just reinforcing bad behavior on his part. Here's the thing with body language, and working as a police officer, and I loved Ben's story this morning because I so related to that story, because I have to tell you, as an undercover officer, working for 8+ years until I got pregnant, buying crack as a pregnant person, not a great plan when you're actually not addicted to crack. So I had to leave that profession when I became a mom. But you learn a lot of, how many of you have had dealings with police? And it could be good or bad. How many of you have dealt with police? Okay. So how many of you can tell when you walk into a room, or the police walk into a room, even if they're not in uniform, you can tell they're a cop? You pick out their body language. You can tell just the way they carry themselves, how they sit in a room with their back always to the room so they can see more, or they'll walk into a bar, if you've been at a bar and the uniform officers are doing a little tour around, and the way they stand with ready, and all the things that they're doing. So imagine, I had been working uniform for just over 3 years, and I was a keener, super keener, and I had all of those mannerisms of a police officer. And then I'm taken and put into an undercover unit where the last thing you want to do is remotely resemble a police officer because you're living in different towns, different names, doing all these different things. So you have to be very much aware of your body language, except at the time I didn't know that that's what was happening. You go for training and you learn things and you learn how to build rapport, you learn what to look for, but they don't actually call it that. And then when you go to law school, they don't talk a lot about how to build rapport. Are lawyers known for their great rapport building skills? No. They're not. Nobody, there's jokes about blondes and lawyers, and trust, and I've heard them. I've heard most of them. So I had to learn when I started working undercover how to change my body language, how to change the mannerisms. I want to give you guys 3 things today that I think will really help build your business. So the know, like, trust. That's always a theme in this business, isn't it? Know, like, trust. It's my personal belief that trust is the most important component of that. How many of you have people that you've spoken with about your products or your business that know and like you, but have never joined you? Anybody? Or is it just me? Yeah, my own sister even. So I think if we can elevate the trust and build more trust so that when you tell them something, they're more likely to believe it. Not only that it's achievable for you, but that it's achievable for them, that would be helpful. So that's what we're going to work through. All right, so the building rapport. Here are the do's. The first picture is mirroring. And they're not doing things identically, and it's probably more of a romance thing. So this is a good rapport builder inside your business, your personal life, whatever, but mirroring. And you can see that they're not doing it identically, but just subtle movements that will mirror the other person will go a long, long way. It's the #1 rapport building body language technique. And body language and nonverbals, frankly, make up the majority of how we communicate. There's been studies where people say, oh, 7% is verbal and this percent and that percent. If you've ever heard that, it's total BS. It's not true at all. There's no measurement that can show that this percentage is nonverbals and this percentage is, and this is what color you paint your toes, and these are all the different things that you have to do. There's nothing like that. But studies do show, and there's different numbers, I think one thing that I would agree on is that nonverbals, body language being a part of that, how you look being another part, your environment is another part, make up the majority of how we communicate with one another. So mirroring. The second, and we touched on this with the test, rapport building, smiling, a genuine smile. Though, you know those fake smiles you get from people? They're just kind of looking or they're nodding, yes. Those people, how many of you can recognize a fake smile from a mile away? Yeah, even the Botox people, they're all frozen up. You know that it's not a genuine smile. But how does it make you feel? Like we have a gorgeous baby here who's been so well behaved, I have to say. It's amazing. This baby can recognize a genuine smile versus an inauthentic smile like that, and will smile back, and just takes that in. And that's so important, is that genuine smile. And the head tilt again. Now, I'm not asking you to look like you need to go to the chiropractor, because that's not going to work for you. But just subtle tilts of head. You've even seen in movies, or if you pay attention to flirting, that slight tilt of the head demonstrates just enough vulnerability and likability that it builds rapport. All right, make sense so far? It's good? Okay, perfect. Some don'ts. The arm cross, I mentioned, it doesn't mean that the person is closed off. It does not mean that. But most of us think that it does. So if you've had a great presentation with someone, you've had a great meeting with them, things seem to be going so well, and then all of a sudden you cross your arms at the end, you've just probably wrecked a lot of the hard work and rapport building that you've done. And you might be cold. You might feel that gas is coming on and you're trying to cover up your belly. You might be one of those guys that likes to stand where he puts his things so his biceps look bigger, maybe. I don't know what your reason is. And it doesn't matter what your reason is, because it matters what the other person thinks. And if they think you're closed off, that means you're closed off. So please, try to remember, no matter how, now once you get to know someone, or if you're in a context where it doesn't really matter, I cross my arms all the time, especially when I'm talking to my teenage son. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you're closed off, but keep in mind it's what the other person thinks, right? This is what we're going for. The next is this figure 4. Crossing your legs doesn't mean you're closed off, and there's techniques that we can do that I can show you where, of course, women especially like to cross their legs, right? If we're wearing a dress or wearing something. When you cross your legs, the person sitting beside you, if the raised leg is between you and them, you're building a wall. If you flip the legs, your leg is not crossed toward them, and you're building more rapport. If you sit, and I don't do really yoga or anything, but so if you sit like this, with the figure 4, and if you put your hands like this, you're really creating a wall. And that starts, the person doesn't recognize why they're starting to feel a little closed off or distanced from you. Or when we were interviewing suspects, so I had a guy come in to interview about a sex assault involving his daughter. And, he was very open when he came in because he was feeling super confident. Like, who's going to believe this 12-year-old kid? And I'm this big deal, and she's nobody. And so I'm interviewing him, and he starts out very open. He actually starts out by sitting with his legs sort of open, right? That dominant posture of exposing everything. Trying to show me, Miss Little Constable, little 20-something-year-old cop, I don't have anything. And the more I questioned and revealed a little bit more to him as to where this was going to be going, his body language ended up like that. So he had a wall between the two of us. And it wasn't what he said that really dialed it up for me that I had the right person. It was his body language. And that's so often what we're looking for when we're communicating with people. Now, I don't think a lot of you are out chit-chatting with pedophiles, so this might not be, but I'm just saying that when you're connecting with someone, maybe your back is sore and you find that position comfortable. Just remember what you're telegraphing to the other person, and that's closed off. Or if you start putting glasses between you, if you're out at Starbucks having a meeting with someone and you put your coffee cup between the two of you, or you put a few things between you, that's building a wall. Even though it's harmless, it seems innocent, it's where there's room to do those things. If you're aware of this, you're more likely to avoid it. All right, and there's many more, but this is one, the hands up. The hands, palms facing toward people. What message am I sending to you? Yeah, stop. Like if I'm like this, then that's a really bad thing. That's what you do when you go into a search warrant. Down on the ground. You're telling someone, stop. And you may be telling a story, you may be super animated with your hands, but when your palms are facing like this, closed off. Your palms are facing up, wide open. Big difference. Simple, but huge when it comes to connecting with people and dealing with them. Now this guy, I couldn't find a more confident looking dude in the iStock videos than this guy. Like, what's he saying? He's like, I got everything you need and more. So I was like, this is my guy. If I were to come out, I'm just trying to see, because I wanted to come down and just connect with a few more people and see what's going on, check out a little bit more body language. Now nobody's doing that, but I've seen, in the chairs, or have you been at your conferences where there are people sort of taking up a lot of space? Yeah, okay, they're confident, they're feeling it, they are. Now, does that build rapport with you, or does that make you irritated like the guy who took up 2 parking spots? Yeah. So there's one thing about being comfortable and confident, and it depends on the context and where you're at, and there's another thing about, just letting it all hang out there. So that is hugely confident, but not an enormous rapport builder. And we're in business to build rapport, right? We want to connect with people. This one, I talked about the cobra. Like, she's so confident she's at the airport lounge, just giving it all up. Very, very confident, not a huge rapport builder. But sometimes expressing confidence is important in our business. And even doing some things before we go to meet with someone, if we can build up our inner confidence, that's a huge deal, right? So don't write these off as don't do's. Just take a look at them and apply them to the context that works best for you. And this one I love, the hands behind the back when you're talking. Have you had people present and they sort of stand like this? And just so you can see my feet a little bit better. When you're standing for confidence and your feet are about 6 inches or more apart, confident. It shows stability, right? It's harder to tip over when your feet are like this. Unless you're in stupid shoes, then it doesn't really matter. So feet apart, hands behind the back, uber confident, still very much a rapport builder. All of the vulnerable areas out there on display, pointed toward the person. So you have that going. When you have your feet totally tight together, less stable, bit more insecure. So remember, the feet tell the biggest story, right? That's where we want to be. We want to make sure that our feet are planted. And this last one, uber confident. Amy Cuddy actually did a TED Talk. If you haven't seen Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on confidence and the power pose, huge. Again, not a ginormous rapport builder because, if I walked in, hey, I want to tell you about these products in my business, probably not closing the deal, maybe not making a friend. But if I'm going to get on the phone or get on a Zoom call or a conference call, or I'm going to go meet someone and I've got a few seconds beforehand, and I don't have to say anything, no one has to be around, and I stand like that, my confidence goes up. So or if you're on the phone and you're having a call to stand like that, huge. So I just wanted to leave a couple of things about detecting deception. And I want to stress that it's not about trying to find the lies. You're not out trying to find all the liars, like all those people tell you they're going to rock and roll business and that they're going to, just crush every record that's ever happened. And if you had $1 for every time you've been told that, you wouldn't even need to be here. But I'm talking about detecting the truth, essentially, looking for the truth. And that happens when we have a baseline. So when you first meet someone, getting to know them a little bit with some easy questions, and Lisa did some great questions this morning, but it can be even about the weather, how spectacular those mountains look. Just finding out how they hold themselves, how they carry themselves, what their tone is, will give you that baseline so that when they deviate from the baseline, you'll recognize it. The next are the pacifiers, and that's the rubbing, the stroking, the tugging of the ear, the wringing of the hands, all of those things. If you see that someone is not doing that when you begin the presentation and they start doing that through, there's something you've said or done or communicated with your nonverbals that's upset them. So watch for those things, and also be cognizant of it in yourself. When you're, those people who have the leg shaky things all the time, or they're always doing something, it makes people aware that there's something that's not quite right. That you may be saying the right things, but how you're feeling is different. The eyes, covering the eyes, those studies with the blind children were remarkable because when we're eye blocking or we're doing that Clint Eastwood far stare from the spaghetti westerns, all of those things, not building rapport, not expressing confidence, definitely adding to a level of suspicion and deception. So our eyes are huge when it comes to what people are looking for. Now, there's all those things about looking up to the left, looking up to the right, looking down, all of that. That's a huge different thing that mostly isn't true. And there's a whole other thing on micro expressions, but for now, just be very aware of where people are looking and if they're covering up their eyes when they're speaking with you. And the exits I touched on briefly. When you're talking with someone, if their belly button or their toes start pointing in another direction, that's where they want to be. So that's important to watch for as well. And this one is a really easy one, is the timing. So when we were watching Ben, and he invited Ariana up onto the stage to tell her how grateful he was, I was so hyper aware of his body language because it was remarkable. When he put his hands to his heart and started speaking with her. He did that before the words came out. That means it's genuine. If you see politicians get coached on how to have correct body language, and when you'll know when they're lying because you've seen it on all the politicians do this. There's not just one, but they'll say something, and then their body language will react. Well, I did not have relations with that woman, and then it's like, you know, a shoulder goes up or something. So there's a whole thing around that. But when the body movement, when the gesture happens before the words, more likely to be the truth. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for everything you've done here. Congratulations on your success, because you wouldn't be in this room without it. And a huge, huge thank you to Ariana for putting this remarkable event together.